Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the July 16, 24 meeting of the City of Roseville Transportation Commission. Would everyone please put all their personal devices on silent mode at this time? Take another look at them, please. If you need to or would like to follow along with the agenda, they are available at the end of the staff table. And if you're at home watching, all meeting documents are available online at the city's website for the Transportation Commission. If you plan to speak at tonight's meeting, please complete a yellow speaker card and return it to the staff table. Lainey, can you call roll, please?
Commissioner Festerson.
Present.
Commissioner McGeorge.
Here.
Commissioner Pell.
Here.
Commissioner Probst.
Here.
Commissioner Radford.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
And Chair Groff.
Here.
And our Youth Commissioner Ponchel is absent excused.
Okay, Commissioner Radford, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand and join me with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time is the time for public comment and for anyone who would like to address the Commission on Transportation related items that are not on tonight's agenda. Speakers, please restrict your comments to the issues that are within our jurisdiction of the Transportation Commission, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes. The Brown Act, with certain exceptions, does not permit the Transportation Commission to discuss or take action on issues that are not listed on the agenda. Please also state your name for the record. Do we have anybody who would like to give us comments? Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Hay. I live at 321 Alta Vista Avenue. I'm here tonight as a board member of the Historic Sierra Vista Neighborhood Association meeting. We had a meeting the other night, and there's concern about the closure of Campo Street in front of Roseville High School for the construction. It's obvious that construction isn't going to finish before school starts, and we're wondering what the city and the school district has plans to mitigate the traffic that's going to impact the streets that surround the high school with that closure. And then there's actually some neighborhood gossip that the school might be becoming a closed campus, and that stretch of Campo Street would be closed permanently. We have no opinion on that matter. What we do have is questions for what is the data that was taken to support that. If there have been traffic studies, the neighborhood association would like to see those. If in fact there's been a determination that there is a tremendous volume or speed of traffic on that stretch that poses a danger to the school, then it would suffice that traffic and speed would propose a danger to the neighborhood. And instead of going straight up Campo to the parking lot, now they're gonna zigzags. They're gonna go Campo to Los Flores to Sierra to Alta Vista. We've already got the U-turn at the end of Alta Vista, the drop-off U-turn that is, it's either the drop-off U-turn that the small cars that can make it down to Alta Vista and back up Alta Vista, or the down Alta Vista and then back up the alley to Manzanita. And that traffic sort of zippers already with coming up Campo, but that's going to be a problem. And so in addition to asking for if there has been an existing study on the traffic on Campo Street that would be driving a discussion to close that, as soon as school is in, we as a neighborhood association would like to request, we'll request this through the city also, as a current study of the vehicle traffic, the speed, the number of cars, that comes up Los Flores, Sierra to Alta Vista. And then we have questions for the high school, things like, where is the staff parking lot? Could that potentially mitigate traffic through the neighborhood? Does the staff come and go at a more steady rate? How many parking lots do they have? How many parking spaces currently? How many parking spaces will they have? Is there any consideration that big giant bus lot could go somewhere else in the district, and that big giant bus lot could become parking for the athletic fields? Just as a neighborhood, that we realize that this is just the very tip of an iceberg. I sent a letter to all of you and to the school board and the city, some city council, city employees just today after our meeting last week to start asking these questions and developing and planning as a neighborhood, as a school district, as a city, how we can mitigate this traffic if indeed a permanent road closure is going to happen, and in the meantime, a temporary road closure that is impacting a community.
Ma'am, what was the name of the neighborhood association you're with?
Historic Sierra Vista.
Historic Sierra
Not the new Historic Vista, the pirated our name, Historic Sierra Vista, since 1906.
A website or a phone number?
We're on Arcona, Sierra Vista at arcona.com.
Okay. Sierra Vista at arcona.com. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to make public comments for items that are not on the agenda within the scope of the
I just
commission?
have one comment.
And
I drove
you will
around
have
the
3 minutes.
roundabout. at the
Mr.
fir-
Eklund, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I drove around the roundabout for the first time in front of the fairgrounds, and congratulations, that works great. And the only other thing is I wanted to ask how many people saw Big Boy yesterday. I mean, I was just kind of curious.
Missed it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, is there anybody else from the public who would like to make a comment? Yes, please come on up. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi there, Commissioners. My name is Keenan Finney, and I'm a resident of Roseville. Just want to let you guys know that one of the reasons why my wife and I chose to live in Roseville is because we found a location that was on the Miners Ravine Trail. And so we were actively looking for places that we could walk, go to the library, walk kids to school, and just want to let you guys know that there's not a lot of communities that have that. So I wanted to thank you guys for your guys' role in creating that infrastructure and maintaining it and expanding it. So thank you. The main thing that I wanted to discuss today was the Measure B sales tax proposal for local funding for the local transportation projects. My understanding is that's going to be on our ballots this fall. I've been reading into it, and I think it makes a lot of sense to have a local measure to fund local infrastructure. But looking into where the money is going to be going, I had a couple questions for you guys, or maybe you guys could raise the question up the chain. A decent chunk of the money goes to transit and rail projects. A small amount goes to biking and pedestrian infrastructure, but the overwhelming majority of it goes to expanding freeways and roads. And I've yet to see any analysis about how much extra that's going to cost the city in 20, 30, 40 years to maintain that infrastructure. It's all about that 30-year time period, and I think like the majority of the budget is going to the I-80 and 65 interchange. So I was just curious if you guys had any information on the maintenance costs for the city going forward. I think it'd be great if instead of expanding road infrastructure, if that money was instead allocated to maintaining and updating the current road infrastructure, and then also potentially giving more money to more of those efficient modes of transport, such as transit or sidewalks, bike paths, stuff like that. So to sum up, I basically just looking to see if anyone is aware of what those increased maintenance costs are going to be and how Roseville is going to fund those after that sales tax ends in 30 years. That's all I have. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Would you be amenable to sending an email to a staff member and
Yeah.
with a line of questions and having responses back to you? Okay. Do you have an email address for him?
Yeah.
Our email or his? Okay. Okay.
Okay, is there anybody else from the public that would like to make a comment? You would have 3 minutes. for items that are not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the May 21, 24 minutes. Can I get a commissioner to make a motion to approve?
Move Commissioner Radford.
Mr. Radford moves, and the second?
Second.
Second from Mr. McGeorge. And the minutes are approved.
Still in the vote.
Wait, so we need to do a vote. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is presentation. And this is a no actions required on the part of the commission. It's an informational item only. It's item 6.1, Roseville Transit Comprehensive Operational Analysis Update. And staff, can we have your presentation, please?
Good evening, Chair Groff, members of the commission. As you know, Roseville Transit's in the middle of right in the middle of a comprehensive operational analysis, or a COA, in which we'll look at all aspects of our transit system. Innovate Mobility was hired by Roseville to do the COA, and we're happy this evening to have Raul Kumar, who is the president of Innovate Mobility, here this evening to give us an update on the COA.
Thanks, Ed. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm excited to be back. We've done quite a bit of work in the last, I think it's been 3 months or 4 months since I saw you. Next slide, please. We wanted to provide today an update of the public outreach that has happened to date, phase it all into kind of where we're at with the project, and then introduce the data and some of the information that we're using to formulate the recommendations, which you will see in August or September of this month. So far, what we've done is had our open house in April. It was a great turnout. It was at the Mahaney Library, and we had over 50 people come in. It was a joint open house with the Active Transportation Plan and the COA folks. And we actually had some interactive workshops where folks were able to kind of list where they want to go, where they're coming from. We helped people kind of understand what it takes to plan a bus route. It was pretty good. We've actually, a couple people here were at the open house. We've also finished the first survey and the second survey. The first one was really designed targeting the fixed route and the aero services. Got about 194 responses. That represents about 35% of the ridership base, so it's a really good turnout. Anything more than about 12 or 15% is great. So I think kudos to the marketing team to get that word out. Finished the commuter survey, 137 responses. That's about 50% of the ridership base, and maybe even a little bit more. So again, really, really good turnout. We're continuing with outreach efforts. Starting next week, we'll be releasing a flash vote, trying to get people's information, feedback on how they learn about transit, if they use transit, et cetera. So far, the flash votes that we've heard from your marketing team, the response has been great. So we're really excited to get that feedback back. And then the draft recommendations are in development. We did have a workshop with the staff today. We're going to continue to work through them. We are in a near final stage of the development of the draft recommendations. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit briefly about the results from the survey because there were some kind of interesting findings. So let's talk about the fixed route. So this is just the regular buses, the A, the B, the C, E, F, L, M, R, and S, and the aero service. And so what we found is predominantly the ridership is between 45 and 65 or older. Pretty common with what we're seeing. And the rest of the group, kind of the distribution is about standard for transit systems of this location and this size. Next slide, please. This is where things got a bit interesting. And I went back and scrubbed the data about 10 times because I've never seen this before in 20-something years of doing this. But this is the highest income level I've ever seen on a survey response. It's so high I actually have trouble believing it, but that's what people said. It's not going to in any way affect our recommendations, but it is good information to have. But according to this, 66 or so % of folks have above a $50,000 a year annual household income. The average household income in Roseville is $111,000, so that is on the higher end. So it could be right, but seeing 42% saying they make $100,000 or more is pretty surprising for a transit survey. Next slide, please. About 20% of the riders, 2 out of every 10, do require a mobility aid, a personal care attendant, or have limited mobility that does affect their daily lives. Next slide, please. And as we move into the commuters, so the fixed route, again, other than the income, no real surprises there. The commuter, again, there was also no really big surprises, but one area that I do think is worth going into. So generally speaking, the commuter base, the ridership is predominantly female. They do ride pretty frequently, and they're in that working class, 35 plus age group. Next slide, please. Typical of commuter services, most folks do ride several times a week, so into Sacramento and back. Generally board at park and rides or along some of the major corridors. Very, very few, if any, riders responded that they transfer from existing Roseville Transit services to commuter services. Next slide, please. This is where things got a little interesting for the commuter study, and there's a lot of information on there. I'm going to distill it down as quickly as possible. Most of the riders have seen some change in work from home policies, whether it's the shift to hybrid, whether it is a request to come back full-time or at least some portion of the time. That's, I think, what we're seeing around the country. What was interesting is, according to what the riders are saying, about 50% of them say that this will not affect how they use Roseville. So what that means, in a nutshell, is that we may see a plateauing of ridership in the near future in the commuter base. That means that that's the most number of people that are going to use the commuter service. We may have already seen it. It may be coming in the next couple months, but the staff is sending me data on a regular basis. We're going to be looking at the July ridership, but April and May, the ridership increases of the previous year have stayed pretty steady. So some of any work from home or any return to work policies may already be baked into the existing ridership. This is speculation because I'd like to see more than 2 months worth of trends, but we'll look at June and July before we can comment further. It's a little disappointing, to be honest with you, because we expected to see some sort of a bump, but it's not something to completely lose sight of and not something to worry about at this moment. Next slide, please. Really good information. The ridership is generally satisfied or very satisfied with the service. They like the service, works well. There are some issues, nothing that is out of the ordinary, but generally speaking, the majority of riders are satisfied with the service. Next slide, please. The improvements, and mind you, some of these improvements, some of the surveys were taken during a heat wave, so I was expecting to see air conditioning and heating issues, and we saw them. Wi-Fi was an interesting one. Majority of people have smartphones, especially when they're riding commuter service that has a high-speed internet connection, so seeing a request for more Wi-Fi was interesting, but we do see that as a pretty common request throughout the country. Next slide, please. Before I go into the next piece, because this is a pretty data-heavy piece, any questions, or I can just keep going?
Just one small one.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I think anecdotally, I think it's smart to watch for June and July numbers. I know my wife's office had return to office dates like mid-June. So I think that's probably a phasing in through summer kind of thing. So yeah, probably smart to watch.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and that's what we were hearing too. A couple of folks delayed a work from home, a return to work until July 1st as well. So we'll see. Okay, let's move on. Next slide, please. Lots of text up here. I wanted to keep it because it goes in the public record, because this is kind of really the basis of what we will use to draft our recommendations. When we talk about effectiveness of transit, we're not talking about buses on the street. We're talking about how effective is it to use the service from the perspective of a rider. We flip the script when we're analyzing these services from a let's get the operations on the road, let's get the buses on the road, let's get them out where we need them to be, to where are people, where are they going, how easily can they use the transit service. So that is, in a nutshell, what we call effectiveness, and it is the underlying red thread that connects all of what we will talk about in how we're formulating our recommendations. Next slide, please. Again, lots of text, but essentially, we talked about the cellular data the last time. We scrub that, we make sure that that is good, but we augment that with ridership data. So true data from the city, where people are getting off, where people are getting on, how frequently are they riding, when are they riding, et cetera. So together, those two give us a really good idea of how people travel in Roseville, be it on transit, bike, walking, or driving. Next slide, please. These two maps represent essentially the travel patterns for either drivers, walkers, bikers, or transit users. On the left side, or your right, my left. The darker black lines indicate how intense the travel is from point to point. So this really helps us on transit understand where people are going at what time of day. The right is the cellular data. So by putting them together, we're actually able to see where the major trip generators are and how well the current transit system covers those trip generators. Next slide, please. So when I talk about coverage, a lot of folks talk about coverage versus frequency in transit. It's a measurement of how well does the system provide an overall coverage of the service area and how frequent the buses come. And when I talked about effectiveness earlier, I never mentioned coverage versus frequency because I don't believe that those are two good measurements for how effective a transit system is. This is your current transit network. What you'll notice is those purple lines are what we call a buffer or a walk shed. So they represent a quarter-mile buffer around your existing routes. That is what that's what we commonly describe as the walk shed to transit. So how far will people walk to get to a bus transit, to a transit line? And that's what that purple represents. Your system covers 91% of your service area. It's fantastic. It is, I mean, 9 out of 10 locations in your city are covered by transit. Next slide, please. You can see that represented here in this graphic. That's that buffer again, and those hexagons, the darker the color represents how intense the trip generator is. So you can see on here that your system today should be able to carry people to and from 90% of the major destinations in Roseville. Next slide, please. But this is where things go a little differently than we would expect based upon that type of a system. While you have 91% of coverage, the problem is that the speeds, the experience the rider has is vastly different than the experience a driver has. The average trip length for a driver in Roseville is about 4.6 miles. The average trip length for a transit rider is about 4.2 miles. So it's not that different, right? The average time a person takes driving is 11 minutes. The average transit user takes 56 minutes for almost the same trip length, 5 times as slow. So that's when we're talking about experience, and we work experience into how effective the transit system is. We see that the experience of the rider is subpar, which is why, even though you have great coverage, you may not be getting the ridership you expect. If you went out and rode the transit system today, your perception is that to get from your house to your destination, it would take you 7.3 miles an hour, basically only 3 times faster than walking. So we know that there is room for improvement based on that. Next slide, please. And so we quantify effectiveness on this scale of basically -10 to +10. I've never worked with a system that is 10 out of 10 unaffected. I've worked with San Francisco, Muni, Philadelphia, Boston. It's just not possible. Where we want those bars, those blue bars to be is on the other side of the zero. We want it to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want your effectiveness to be positive. And how we measure that is that experience and that access that riders have. Next slide, please. So how do we do it? And this is kind of the underlying architecture in written format of how we will create the recommendations and redesign the system. One is focusing on that rider experience. So whether it's capital improvements like bus lanes and things like that, it's also optimizing the routes. You have routes that run every 60 minutes or every 40 minutes. You have some that run every 30 minutes, but they're longer routes. So we want to shorten those routes. We want to make them more targeted and tightly operated so that people can turn around and that seat can turn over more and over. You can think of it as a kind of an Applebee's. You want that table to turn over as frequently as possible. You don't want it to be like a fine dining restaurant where that person is at that seat for 4 hours. We want to expand coverage, so in new areas like the West Plan, north, the Blue Oaks area, even some of the new developments in the vineyards, we want to look at expanding those, but we can't do it with fixed route. Can we design new on-demand zones that cover those areas that are better to serve less dense areas rather than the fixed route service? We want to improve the quality and the passenger satisfaction. How can we get them information? How can we see where the buses are? How can they make transfers and be informed with their bus passes and things like that to use the system in an easier fashion? And what are the investments that need to be made, whether it's investments in service levels, investments in technology, investments in the infrastructure? What are those investments that need to be made? And those are all part of the plan recommendations we'll be giving to staff and to you for your approval. Next slide, please. These are the goals that I presented back when we initially came to you, and nothing has changed. We always look at these goals over and over again, make sure that we're pointed in the right direction, but everything here is in line with what we have found so far with the transit effectiveness. Next slide. And lastly, I'll leave you with kind of where we're at today. So all the way through July, we are already 8 months through this project, and we have about 3 or 4 months left to go. We're at that last third and a little bit more than that stretch. In August 6th, we'll be having an open house, actually right around the corner here, right next door. And we're inviting folks to actually come and comment on the recommendations. The marketing team has already done 12 pop-ups. We've done all these surveys. We have done, the team, I shouldn't take any credit for this, the team has done a ton of work already in informing people about this study. The next step is to actually get information from folks on what they think about the recommendations. What are their thoughts? Having actual, not focus groups, but having tabletops where we actually go through the service changes with people. They comment, they say, oh, this will work, this won't work. Understanding how people travel today. And then our goal is to have a final draft, obviously through approval in October. That said, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I think this time we need to open it up for public comment.
Sorry.
And so if there's anybody that has any comments for this item and would like to come forward and address the commission at this time, please have a yellow speaker card and you'll have 5 minutes. Was there anybody that plans on speaking on this item at all? Yeah?
You can fill the card out
Yeah,
afterwards.
you can fill it out afterward. Go ahead and come on up. Just make sure they get it, so.
Yeah. My name is Keenan Finney again. I just wanted to comment that I took the, I think it's the Route B from the Sutter Hospital to like the Galleria and down to downtown. And that AC worked great for me. I do think it would be great if we had like a tap to pay option rather than having to pay with like physical dollars and cents because a lot of people don't carry that around. I think that might be in the works, but I haven't heard that discussed. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you.
Easy one. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is
Hello.
Maeva Costa. So at the last meeting, I spoke, and I think what you presented today kind of resonated with what I had mentioned, and I just wanted to just speak just with data aside, with my personal experience with transit. I mean, we're really getting to what's important in terms of especially the frequency of our routes. It's really difficult to get around when we only get one route an hour, and some routes end at 6 p.m. Additionally, I just wanted to kind of mention my experience trying to navigate through Roseville without using a car as much as possible. So an exercise that I've done recently is just looking at things that I need to do and options that I have to get around, and if I would rather walk, or if I have the option to bike, or if I can drive. And more often than not, it's just ends up that driving is just a safer, more convenient option, but I think would be better that we feel like biking is a safer option, or that driving transit is also just a more convenient option, because it should just be At times, I just end up having to walk places so I can avoid some of the parking issues we're probably going to have today. Yeah, I just want to echo everything that's been presented today. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to give comment?
Actually, I have just a couple questions, just simple questions for you.
Yeah, Mr.
Oh,
Eklund,
I'm
you can
sorry.
ask
Okay.
us.
I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
I've got just
That's okay.
one question, a couple questions on his slide.
Sure.
You gave an average speed of 7.5 miles an hour. Now, does that include waiting times for a transfer? Okay, so that's an important thing. It's not just, I mean, that would be really low for if you're just on a regular bus, so.
Yeah, for the commission's purpose, that's an experienced speed, not
Experience, okay.
not a speed of the actual buses.
Okay, yeah, okay. And I know you've got bus lanes in there or something. There's a lot of elements to bus lanes, and one of them could just be signalization, things like that. And I think, Roseville actually has pretty good signalization. I looked at the new sales tax measure, and it's very confusing as far as transit is concerned. It lists BRT, and then it has local money for transit, okay? That money should be coming out of BRT if it's signalization, because that's part of signalization. It shouldn't come out of your local funds for signalization. And there's stuff in there, and I'll provide what I know, but it's very confusing for transit. It's stuff that was still around from the 2016 measure, and unless it's addressed, you may have a really hard time getting the money out of there that you need for infrastructure. Anyway, that's just a comment. But it looks like you've got a very good study, and I think it's really interested in seeing what happens at the end. There's already a couple things kind of, I'm on the advisory board for the PCT on the TAC board, and there's a couple things where the interactions are already occurring, and I'm not sure it's being coordinated very well. There's a route that is being proposed coming from Rockland High School down Park, Pleasant Grove into the Galleria. So it's 20% of the route is in Roseville, and there's going to have to be some sort of negotiations, even whether you even want it or not. You may not even want to have service on there. And then also, are they allowed to stop? The last time this was tried in a short-range transit plan, Roseville said PC bus can't stop in Roseville, no matter where it is. So there's some negotiations there. The other one is, there's a park and ride lot in Lincoln, which has been vacant forever. Nobody can get there. The railroad tracks go there. There's two large neighborhoods. You can't get there by bike or walking. And it's to be the end route of the Rapid Link. It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. And PCT wants people in Rockland to drive 5 miles in the wrong direction so they can connect to it and provide riders. Isn't going to happen. Nobody's going to do it. But it's in the plan that PCT has a route that's going there also. So anyway, there's some stuff going on here that really needs to be addressed along the way, and I just hope it all comes together. But I think your consultant is doing a really good job.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. Is there anybody else for public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment. And commissioners, do you have any comments for Mr. Kumar or for staff? Start over here, Mr. Rink George.
I have no comments at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Radford.
Yeah, Mr. Kumar, I really liked the study. I think it was probably one of the more thorough ones I've seen, and Mr. Eklund kind of scratched the surface with it. It was, 7.4 miles, 7.3. That was kind of an alarming statistic. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, I'd probably invest in a good pair of running shoes and a Class 2 reflective T-shirt and get around town faster. But, I mean, ideally, somebody like my family would use the transit when they maybe do the Kings games. But getting around town, it makes sense. There's a lot of stops. There's a lot of wait time. But, yeah, I don't know how you get there, but I'm glad to see that good minds are working on it. Because I know we're mandated to have alternate transportation, much to the chagrin of some people. But I'm glad to see we are working on it, and I'm glad to see you were transparent and you put the statistics out there for us to look at. So thank you for that, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
I have a couple questions. I thank you, Mr. Kumar, for your study there. I think it's, very detailed. I had some questions on like the histogram of TEI, but I can talk to you after that. I would say that, to echo some of the other comments, like we're trying to provide the freedom to choose the way you want to get around town in an effective manner so that you don't have too much of the hand on the scale for, just using a car. And so I'm a big supporter of that. I would say one thing that, I've heard is like looking at the rider experience, whether that's the website for booking trips on microtransit. I've heard some complaints about that. Or just, we've heard previously in commission meetings, I think it was last year, about stops where there's a shelter on one side of the street and not the other. There's no trees. It's hot. It was 112 degrees. That doesn't entice people to ride transit. So I think trying to find recommendations maybe where the city can invest in smart, like limited in scope, smart application of you don't put 5 different designs of bus stop. You take one bus stop that you can make cheaply, and coming from a manufacturing background, plunk that in a bunch of different places, and connect to rider information systems. This is something that, my wife has taken that takes a commuter bus to downtown, and usually, she checks on the website, but not everyone can do that. And especially, if you have folks who need to ride the bus and are limited in how they can use technology, that is hard. And so connecting to, accessible rider information systems, I think is really critical. People want to know how long it's going to take to get somewhere, or at least when their bus is going to show up. But I think you've done a great job. Was that August 6th for the open house, you said?
Yes, August 6th from 5 to 7 p.m.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
of course.
Mr. Roberts.
Good evening, how are you?
Thank you. Fine, thank you.
I just had a couple of things here. Excuse me. The data that you had, I found pretty interesting, but I guess, in my opinion, not surprising. I've sat up here a few times since we've talked about the Transportation Comprehensive Operational Analysis. That's a lot of words in that. I've said it a few times that I've always thought that a lot of the reason that people don't take public transit is because it's not very efficient compared to driving your car. And I think that your data pretty much proved that with hard statistics, which wasn't surprising to me. I thought it was very thorough. And I'm very interested to see how somebody like you recommends to fix that problem, because I think that's really the crux of the issue is how do you entice people, or how do you make it more efficient so people think it's worth their while, right? And then I guess just kind of a bit of a question to you that kind of piggybacks off of what Derek said. Does the analysis that you do, it creates an effectiveness score. That effectiveness score is based off of roughly who's riding it today, or does it take into account prognostication if it becomes more efficient, then more people ride it, and then how effective is it once more people start riding it? It's kind of a weird question.
No, it's actually a really good one. We can't predict the future, but we do our best. So we actually have built modeling tools that are great, but unless you have 25 years of transit experience, you can't smell where the rat is. So our goal is we use those tools to the best of our ability to understand and project where ridership will be, and then come back and say, does that really make sense? So we've modeled out all of the changes. We have not modeled out what that transit effectiveness will be yet. We want to finish up the route designs. We want to finish up the on-demand zones, put everything together in a network, and then we can take a shot at it. But to be perfectly honest, it could be spot on or it could be off by a lot. What we do know for today, though, is what the effectiveness is. And to speak to that effectiveness, it's kind of a mixed word because we do talk about the access. So that 7.3 miles an hour is a journey time. So that's when you get out of your house, walk to a bus stop, wait for a bus, transfer, 42% of your riders transfer from one route to another route. That transfer time, so when you're transferring from a 60 to a 60-minute route, sometimes it'd be right there. Sometimes you have to wait 60 minutes. And then to eventually get to your destination and then walk to your destination. That whole experience is, it's not because of the coverage. It's just because it's slow and it's inaccessible. The staff has done a phenomenal job designing a transit system. Now the question is, how can we make it more effective?
Yeah, which is certainly very intricate with lots of different variables.
Lots of moving parts.
So I totally get that. And my only other comment is that I guess I'm a resident of West Roseville, so it was, I guess, pleasing to me, in my opinion, that you seem to think that the I forget what you call it, but the microtransit is what they call it here in the city of Roseville. It seems to be kind of more of an effective route in West Roseville, which I guess aligned with kind of what my thinking was as well. It's from somebody that lives in West Roseville, it's a lot easier to have an effective system to go on an app, call a ride, have the ride come get me, instead of trying to figure out how to take a bus from one end of Roseville to the other end, because east to west, that's a long way here in this city. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Probst.
Great presentation. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, great presentation. Thank you for all your information update, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. I hope we can catch some of you on August 6th. It'd be great to have you.
So it was August 6th, open house, and where is it
At the
again?
Civic Center, it's
Civic
right
Center?
next door.
Right here? Okay.
Yeah.
And is that on the website or anything?
It's on the Transportation 360 website.
What you're asking.
And it'll
You
be
find out all this.
promoted quite a bit in the coming weeks.
Okay, great. And then a couple of questions about the survey. Can you just go into a little bit about how the outreach was done, how that was promoted, how you reached the riders specifically?
So the marketing team did 12 pop-ups informing them of the active transportation plan, the COA. They did Facebook posts, I think Instagram as well. Well, there's a whole website dedicated to the project. All of the buses had cards on them saying, please scan this code for a survey. If during the week the responses were down, they would pump up the engagements and things like that over social media. I'll say it, like I said, having that many responses, especially on the fixed route side, is really good. We've got a good idea of the fixed route ridership sentiment. What we don't have a good idea of yet is the non-rider segment. So that's where the flash vote will help. That's where the April 6th meeting will help. And that's where the next stage of the outreach really needs to go.
Yeah, there's a gap, isn't there?
Absolutely, 100%.
Trying to get the non-riders to be riders now.
I mean, you're talking the difference between the whole population of Roseville and 300 people.
Yeah. Okay. And was there any, you talked about some of the analysis related to what the riders' goals were and what they were talking about. Was there any complaints about the system?
So the majority of the complaints, they were really on the, there weren't many complaints on the fixed route side other than I can't get to where I'm going. Bus is too slow. So those were baked in. On the commuter side, there were complaints about air conditioning. There were very, very few complaints, but definitely a couple about parking at the park and rides, and then arrival timeliness of the commuter routes in Sacramento. So, and that is something that the staff and I have already looked at. We're actually working on a plan right now to improve the on-time performance. There's already some bus crowding of return trips from Sacramento.
Okay. And some of those complaints, were they obviously vetted for perception versus what can actually be achieved?
Yes, 100%. The funny thing about commuter service is that everyone knows everybody. So if you get one complaint, you're probably going to get 7 complaints.
Okay.
So it's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, we parsed it out the best we could.
Good. Okay. All right. Appreciate your update and all the information. Very put together and thoughtful as well. Again, would there be an opportunity to actually bring the survey to the PowerPoint next time, maybe? That way we can kind of get an idea for the commissioners and staff as well, and everybody watching, what your data points have actually retrieved from, or
Sure.
are retrieved from, maybe just throw it up on a PowerPoint slide or something like
Yeah.
that, so we can make that connection to what you're talking about.
We can email also the commission, both the fixed route survey and the commuter survey, as well as the flash vote.
Are you coming in during, for the remainder of the year?
I will be in August for our meeting. Will not be here for the commission meeting. I'm not sure when that is, but I will be here for September and October.
Okay, and there's a second survey going out, correct?
That will be after the August 6th meeting.
Okay, so maybe we can get that in
Yeah.
in the presentation, so.
And that's going to be the broader one to
Okay.
everyone and also to get feedback from folks. So I'm not expecting a 38% response rate on that one, more like 10 or 12%.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, any comments or questions from commissioners? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, so moving on to item 6.2, Roseville Transit Onboard Technologies. Again, this is a non-action item for the commissioners, it's informational only. Staff, can we have your presentation, please?
Hello again. So this presentation is following on the heels of the COA. As you can see, it's a pretty exciting time to be part of Roseville Transit. The COA is in full swing. We have electric buses and vans that are expected here by the end of the year. We have a charging depot out at the courtyard that was recently finished and is awaiting the buses. So very exciting time. In addition to these major items, staff is also working on some other things that may not get as much attention as these bigger items, but are things that are designed to improve the rider's experience or improve the way we do things here at Roseville Transit. So the purpose of this presentation is to simply provide kind of a high-level overview of some of the other items that we're working on that will complement these major changes, and they're on the horizon, as part of this transition for Roseville Transit. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Rich Frost to provide an overview of these items.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed. And good evening, Commissioners. I'm excited to talk about what types of technology that we have on our buses. Not only what we currently have on the buses, but other technologies that we're looking at implementing over the next 6 months to a year. And so there's a lot of exciting things happening out there in the technological front. I guess I'll first start off by one of my favorite technologies has been the Apollo camera system. Each bus contains a total of 8 cameras placed at different locations throughout the inside and the outside of the bus. Video footage is pulled by our bus contractor, MV Transportation, to assist with investigating accidents, incidents, and a number of passenger concerns that might occur. Maybe a passenger's been passed up or the claim has been passed up. We've had a number of instances where, purses were stolen, a few minor assaults, things that had just been really difficult to take somebody's word at. When I had first started with MV here, 20 years ago, when I get customer complaints, it's really hard to verify that a complaint actually existed outside of taking somebody's word, because somebody else, the driver might have a total opposite story, right? So, but the camera systems has really helped prove what a particular situation, how a particular situation may have taken place. And so, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and so the camera systems has been working well, and it's really been an important part of the daily operation. Every bus also contains a secondary drive cam system. These cameras have both front-facing and rear-facing views. These cameras will activate when a driver stops abruptly, turns too quickly, or the operator manually triggers the camera by hitting a designated button. The drive cam captures 10 seconds before and 10 seconds after a triggered event. Also installed on all the buses is a Mobileye pre-alert device. The safety-focused technology is very common in most newer vehicles and will sound an alarm when a driver follows too close to the vehicle in front of them, is not properly centered in their lane, or exceeds the posted speed limit. And so the neat thing about that is I like the functionality of where it has the ability to actually read the speed signs and then alert the driver, hey, you're going too fast. So it's kind of a neat system. Next is a Zonar tracking system. Drivers complete their legally required pre-trip and post-trip inspections using this technology. When defects are discovered during the inspection process, the system notifies our fleet's maintenance department so the bus can be turned into the garage for repairs. This technology also provides operations and staff with bus tracking capabilities and reporting capabilities. The GenFare Odyssey is our primary fare collecting device and accepts cash and pre-purchase cards. The data collected from this system helps staff create a variety of reports for regional and FTA audits. We are currently in the process of installing the next generation Odyssey boxes in our new and current fleet. The newer boxes will be more reliable and will help provide more comprehensive reporting functionality. As mentioned, I also wanted to touch on a few of the newer technologies that we are currently evaluating. CubaPay, and we had talked about, had some made reference to this earlier, is the next generation payment system. It uses the same technology one would use at Starbucks or the tap and go process. This is an open source system that will allow our passengers to pay their fare with a tap-ready credit card, debit card, or pay card such as Venmo or PayPal. A customer can also pay with a prepaid transit card. This is a regional effort where all transit agencies within Sacramento market will be participating. All hardware, installation, and warranty expenses will be paid from regional grant funding. So this is a project that I think will really bring our whole system to the next level. And the fun thing about it is it's all being paid for. So I like that part. I'm probably most excited about this next technology I'm going to speak on, and it's called the GMV Hub. This system will connect our vehicle to our scheduling and dispatching software. This device will employ real-time data to track all of our buses, provide our passengers with accurate arrival times, and monitors the system for vehicle breakdowns and/or emergencies. I'd like to briefly cover a couple of the features that the GMV Hub will provide to our system as a whole. There's a few acronyms here, so please forgive me. I come from a military background, so it's just kind of where I come from and what I do, but I'll explain what they do. CAD system is our computer-assisted dispatch, and it helps operations assign buses, drivers, and routes on a daily basis. The AVL, or the Automated Vehicle Locator, is the piece that provides dispatch and passengers with the location of our buses. The APC, or Automatic Passenger Counting System, this feature counts every passenger boarding or aligning from our buses and is a great resource for planning and reporting purposes. This particular piece of technology has been out for a while, but they've made some tremendous advances as far as the accuracy of it. So, and this particular piece will really help us with our future planning. Right now, there's, in some cases, some anecdotal information, and then we have what we call boarding aligning, where drivers will count passengers getting on or getting off the buses, but this will give us a real good picture, a much more accurate picture for future planning. So we're really excited about this one. Another feature is stop annunciators. This feature will announce all upcoming buses and points of interest, which is an ADA requirement. Drivers currently complete these announcements so that it kind of distracts the driver from doing their job when they're concentrating on trying to remain safe. So this option will benefit not only our passengers, but keep our drivers focused on the road. We are also looking at this actual hub will, well, it's going to be a display that's going to be on the inside of the buses, and you've probably seen them either on some trains. Probably the most common technology is used on that. And it's overhead sign integration where the system will display the next bus for our passengers and preview from the inside of the bus. So they'll, if they, for example, if they have some, if they're hearing impaired, we'll have the enunciation. If they're visually impaired, they'll be able to hear and or see. So that we're trying to cover all options there in order to make it as convenient and ADA compliant as possible. And last but not least, the bus utilizes cellular technology for its functionality and will provide Wi-Fi capabilities for our passengers while riding the bus. So we had, again, heard that earlier today as well. One more project I wanted to quickly mention is the Roseville Bus Shelter Replacement Project. Roseville currently has many old bus shelters that need to be repaired or replaced. The shelters look old and do not provide a welcoming place to wait for the bus. Also, most shelters include glass panels that need to be replaced when broken. The cost to replace these glass panels has skyrocketed over the past year. Fiscal year '23, Roseville paid almost $10,000 to replace glass on our current shelters. Because of this, staff has made the decision to replace up to 40 shelters using state funding that will be available early next year. And it's kind of based on the way that the COA is going to take place, where our new stops are going to be. So it's kind of going to be congruent and run alongside those decisions as to where our new bus shelters are going to be placed. The new shelters will have a modern look, will be glass-free, and will improve the overall bus riding experience for our residents. And I had put a picture in there that this is actually one of the nicer ones. So we're looking at all kinds of different options as far as the different shelters that we're looking at. So some will be bigger, some will be smaller, but it really enhances the system as an overall. So that concludes my report. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. At this time, I'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item only, you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Mr.
Couple
Eckel?
questions. Is the Connect, does the Cuba replace Connect? It does replace Connect, so, okay, whole new system. Long overdue is real-time information at park and ride lots and transit centers. The Galleria, you know, it's nice to have them in all the buses, but the technology for putting a kiosk at the Galleria to show when buses ride, that's been around for a long, long time, and it's way overdue. Hopefully that can come pretty soon.
Yeah.
But I think all of that, information is great. I guess the question I have is someone who, from Rockland, or was there a chance to sign get PCT Transit to kind of go in with you to sort of maybe do a joint purchase and save some money?
Mr. Eklund, did you have a question for us? I'm sorry.
No, those are the only questions. Connect card going in, and I would like to see some, and another one is really just transit information at the stop. I noticed that when you had a picture of the shelter, there was a little schedule thing there. Those are very valuable, and that would be most useful to have too.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment from anyone in the audience? Yes, you'll have 5 minutes, please.
Hi there, Keenan Finney again. Just real quick, I rode my bike down here today, and I used the bike link lockers over by the parking structure. I saw with the bus shelter replacements, there was a bike parking stand there. Is there any thought to putting a bike link locker at some of those locations as well? That was one question. And then my other question too was, will the smaller Aero transit buses also be updated, or is it only going to be the fixed route or commuter buses? That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Schofield, is that something that you're prepared to talk
Yeah,
about?
I'll take the smaller buses, the electric vans will replace the Cutaway, the smaller buses. That's our current plan, but we will still have 3 Cutaways as needed that could be used as well. But the idea is to have smaller vehicles that are, I think, the community would I think, appreciate more. I guess they'll look nice. So, and then as far as the bike lockers, right now they're underutilized where we do have them, but we're always open if there's a location that you think would be better used, we could always look into that. So,
You have their email, right?
yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was gonna say.
All right, is there anybody else for a public comment this evening on this item? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment, and so this is the time for any of the commissioners that have any comments or questions. We'll start at this end. Ms. Festerson?
No, I'd like to thank all the comments tonight from everyone that came. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the good information. We look forward to hearing back and moving forward with this, making the system better.
Mr. Probst?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Roberts?
What was the name of that real-time technology you were talking about at the end there?
It was the GMV hub.
Does that, the real-time technology that you give to the passengers, does that work through like some sort of kiosk at the bus stop? Or does the passenger access it through some sort of app that's going to get set up?
Yeah.
I was just curious how that works.
Well, there's going to be kind of 3 steps to that. One is going to be through an app, so you can sign in to our website via the app, and it will provide where your bus is at and an ETA of when it's going to arrive at a particular location. 2, there's going to be an update that, again, is going to be displayed within the bus itself. And then ultimately, and as Mr. Eklund had mentioned, we would like to get at, especially some of our main transfer points, some electronic notifications as well that will provide passengers that are waiting at those locations when the bus is going to be arriving.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Bell?
Thank you very much, Mr. Frost, for that presentation. Great to see some of this technology coming down the pipe, and nice to know what's in the buses already. I guess the one thing I had a question was, does Cuba Pay, could that help enable potential, seamless transit between regional transit agencies if in the future you're all buying the same stuff? Presumably the back end's connected somewhere too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the neat thing about it, it's an open source system. So you can, say pay with your credit card, pay with a debit card. There will be also transit passes that you can load money on as well. And so it's, between here, Sacramento, Placer County, it will be a seamless process. Now, with the card itself, for example, if you have a credit card that you want to get a discount on, you'd have to register it with the transit agency in order to receive your discount. Or if you don't choose to do that and just pay the full fare, you can also do that and just tap your card on. So, yeah, it's pretty much open to anybody who wants to ride. It's a pretty seamless process.
Great. I mean, I love seeing that sort of technology. I think obviously great improvement for the customer. I think something we've talked about before is having connections between transit agencies, single ticket journeys, even with multiple operators, that I know the back end money sharing portion of that is always a problem, but riders want to get from somewhere to somewhere else. They don't particularly care if that's in Roseville to Rockland or Roseville to Sacramento. People just want to get where they want to get.
Yeah.
And I guess I would just say I'm a large advocate for how can we improve the seamless experience of the riders wherever they are.
Well, and that's kind of the neat thing about this open source process. So with Connect Card, what we have right now, it's tied to a specific card that monies need to be downloaded on. So for example, a lot of our commuters, you're going to have state, federal, county agencies that will contribute to that. In this particular case, it's going to be very much more individual, and as with that individual, we won't have to have the cost sharing like we have with some of the programs we have now, because an individual will be able to register their card and just tap their own card, so we won't have to necessarily coordinate with SAC-RT or with Placer County like we do in some instances now. So it frees things up, so to speak.
Sounds like you're setting Roseville up for the future. Thank you.
Trying.
Mr. Radford?
And thank you, Rich. I really like that you broke down the acronyms. It took me a while when they were originally talking about the COA. It's the Comprehensive Operational Analysis. And you did a good job kind of walking through a lot of those changes. And you can really see your experience in your long-term time here with the city, coming up through the blue collar to where you're at here with us today, and that's big because you know the changes that need to be implemented. I really like the Apollo system. It really, the safety concerns for a lot of riders, that will give ease to that. And I really liked the model that you shared on the bus shelter. In particular, it had kind of the handrails instead of one fluent bench, and that would make it next to impossible for somebody to make it a bed where you come up to use the bench and somebody's sleeping on it. So I like that model, and I'd like to put my 2 cents in for that one as we move forward with the plan when we get that state funding. So,
You can bet on it.
well done. Thank you.
Mr. McGeorge?
Thanks again for your presentation. Yeah, I want to reiterate, I'm excited for hopefully we get that funding for the bus shelters, because I feel like if you walk up to an ugly bus shelter, you're not going to want to wait there for the bus, right? Which is affecting everything we're talking about today. And I feel that if they were nicer and more welcoming, it would probably get us more riders just to start off with. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, so I'm not great today. Can I ask, maybe I'm just dumb to the system, but what's the difference between, so you said there's the Gen Fair Odysseys, right?
Yes.
And then we're adding Kubas.
Yes.
Are those going in the same buses, or are those, like, because they seem like they kind of do the same thing, except one's tap and one's not, right? Basically.
Right. Well, with the Gen Fair Odysseys, all transit agencies inevitably will have to collect cash, right? Because we don't want to discriminate folks that may be underbanked or don't have a credit card or a debit card of sorts. And so that's the primary function of the Odyssey, is to collect cash. And there's a process when the driver gets back to the corp yard, they download all their cash and it's counted, and David and his team take care of all that. So we're probably always going to be having Odysseys or some type of cash collection system on the buses. The advantage, of course, with the tap-on technology is, it's going to make things a lot quicker. And honestly, we do hear feedback from time to time is, I don't know how much it is, so I don't even want to bother with it. Whereas by someone could just whip out the debit card and pay automatically, and they won't have to worry about it. So, so that's why kind of the 2 different types of fare collection system are on the bus.
True. Well, that's all I got. Thank you very much for your presentation, guys.
Okay, Mr. Frost, just a couple questions real quick. Regarding the cameras in the buses, is there a retention period policy for that?
Yeah, there is 3 years.
3 years?
And it's going to be, and based on the severity, it's up to 5 years if there's a concern like a fall, potential lawsuit, those type of things. So that's when we'll actually take the actual cartridge itself and we'll set it off to the side and keep it for years to come, just in case there's a concern that happens down the way.
So it sounds like if there's an incident, then somebody would have 3 years to contact the city about it? Or is
well,
everything gone after 3
Yeah,
years?
yeah, and what's going to be released to the public versus not, I would leave that one up to Mike, but just generally speaking, and it's very rare, honestly. I mean, in all my time, it's really only happened one time where I think we've had a request for something over 2 years old, so.
Okay, and if there is something that happens on the bus, does the PD just have ready access to you
Yeah.
or to the staff? Or
That's happened many times where PD will come down and we'll put it on a USB and provide it to them.
I can just give it to them? Okay, great. And then you mentioned the driver monitoring system, if they're in or out of their lanes or going a little bit too fast or the following distance isn't right. One of the concerns that I have is for the drivers themselves, relating to, is that monitored by staff, meaning, is there a monthly printout that comes to the driver and a supervisor looks at it and says, well, on this date, you were 1 mile an hour over the posted speed limit. We need to talk about that. Or is it complaint driven? So can you kind of give us an idea on how the HR aspect is on this now that there's so much monitoring of the driver's activities?
Yeah. Well, for that particular device, it's actually self-sustained and it has no reporting capabilities.
Okay.
So, in other words, it's just purely for the driver's benefit, if you will. So when the alarm goes off, David and his staff wouldn't even know that that actually occurred. If there is a complaint against a driver, of course, just generally speaking, we're always going to give the benefit to the driver. Well, in other words, you're innocent before proven guilty. And therein lies the advantage of having the Apollo system. So we can pull the clip and find out whether a claim is actually true or false. And I just got to say, I've investigated, when I say dozens, probably hundreds of different scenarios. And in the large majority of cases, the driver tends to be innocent versus guilty. It just tends to be somebody that's either running late to a job interview or something like that, and it's easy to blame the driver until you say, by the way, we got some cameras, let me, in fact, we just had one last week. Let me pull the camera clip and take a look. Oh, no, you don't need to do that. Okay, so, so we do have some backup processes in order to follow up with the drivers as well. And, one of the things I know that, having worked with MV, and I know David is very similar as we.
Why don't you introduce David, who he is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good idea. David Mack. David is a new general manager for MV Transportation. Thanks, Ed. Great point. So he took my place, doing an awesome job, doing a great job. And so they follow up, and they really emphasize training, encouragement, and rather than making things overly punitive. And so, that's I know always been the tenor of how MV manages their folks there. But that's how they follow up usually, is through a camera system again.
So normally it's complaint driven?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right, good. That's kind of my thought on things as well. And then when's the electric buses coming online?
Yeah, so we have weekly calls with Phoenix every Monday. Right now, the ETA of the 10 commuter buses we have is right in the November-December timeframe. So very excited about that. They've been sending us a lot of pictures and giving us a lot of updates and those type of things. We also have the 12 vans that should be here right around the same timeframe, actually. So really excited about that.
So when the electric buses get here, is the charging stations at the depot already completed?
Well, we actually have 9 dispensers that have already been certified and are up and running. Those are level 3 chargers. Now, what level 3 is they charge the bigger buses. We also have 10 level 2 chargers, and those are for like the pickups, we'll charge our vans, and some of the smaller vehicles, and those are also up and running at the Corp Yard. The pantographs, we're building 3 of them at the Galleria, and actually only 2 are going to be in place initially. Those phase 1 should be done with, and that's all the infrastructure and all the wiring is going to be laid here it'll be done within the next couple weeks, so pretty excited about that as well. Phase 2 is when the actual pantographs arrive and the switchgear arrives and some of the other parts that are coming from overseas. Should arrive, give or take, in the February, March timeframe, and that'll be fairly easy. That'll probably be about a month-long process to get that all up installed and running, and then, that's when our Rapid Link timeframe is supposed to be up and running as well. So from a timing standpoint, it's all working out pretty well, actually.
Okay, great. The reason why I bring that up is, Mr. Schofield, we had discussed the commission coming out for a tour, so maybe that might be getting closer. End of the year, beginning of the year, something like that.
Yeah, we were talking about what would be an appropriate date, but with the COA going on, we want to make sure we're here, but we would like to have a date where we're out there, and we thought maybe if we get some buses and vans out there as well, give you a little more to see. So it's on our, it's on our agenda. We just got to figure out the right date.
Okay, all right, appreciate that. All right, is there any other questions or comments from the commission for staff or anything? Seeing none. So, staff, do you have any informational items or updates to report?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing. All right. Commissioners, do you have any informational items to bring up for report?
Yeah, so myself and our youth commissioner, Panchel, joined went to on June 1st. We didn't have a meeting last month, so didn't get to talk about it. We went to the American River Bike Patrol Awards ceremony over here at Royer Park. And it was pretty cool to see the camaraderie we got to see the presentation from them a few months ago. And it was pretty cool to see all these awards that they were giving out. And it was very heartfelt, and it's very, I think it's very, I don't want to be sub and say cool, but I think it's a great thing that they're, you know, taking part in Roseville now too. There was a lot of, some of these guys have been doing this for like 30 years. Like, it's insane. And they were all a very tight-knit group, and I think that we're going to very much be in good hands on our bike paths with all of them out there now. So we're glad we got to join them, and it was a pretty fun afternoon. Really hot, but it was a fun afternoon.
Good. Well, I really appreciate the representation that you brought to that event. That is very good to see. Anybody else have any informational items?
I got one.
Yes.
I just want to say a big shout out to city staff for how they handled the Union Pacific Big Boy visit this last weekend. Incredibly hot, incredibly busy. Downtown's maybe the busiest I've ever seen it. And, you know, hey, trains are transit, so we'll say that's in the scope of our, you know, what we're doing here. Yeah, no, really super cool to see the largest steam engine ever built, 1.1 million pounds. I loved it, so my son loved it, and it was great. And on a different note, my wife and I welcomed our second kid 2 weeks ago, so big shout out to my wife, Audrey. And yeah, very excited.
Congratulations.
Anybody else has any comments or updates?
I don't have anything as cool as Derek had, but it was mentioned a couple of times by the public throughout the meeting today, the Measure B sales tax. Do you have an opportunity, Ed, just to generally describe what the Measure B sales tax is coming up for everyone?
I don't have that information.
No? Okay.
We could get that to you if you would like.
I'll be giving us an update, probably at our next meeting.
Yeah, it's probably coming. So, Mr. Probst or Ms. Festerson, anything?
No, thank you.
No, okay. All right, so the next and final item is a motion to adjourn. And is there anybody that has a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Pell, and a second?
Second.
Mr. Probst? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.